People are so indoctrinated too. There's so many people that no matter what, they think voting Republican means you're an asshole.
Yes.
And they won't do it. They
Yeah.
won't do it. They'll put their fucking rainbow flag on their porch and they'll just ride it right into the beach.
Civilizational suicide.
Yeah. Right to the rocks. Bang,
Yeah.
crash the boat.
I mean, there's a guy who posts on X who's great, Godsad.
Yeah, he's a friend of mine.
Oh,
He's been on
great.
the podcast a bunch of times.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And he talks about, basically suicidal empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's so much empathy that you actually suicide yourself.
Yeah.
So that we've got civilizational suicidal empathy going on. And it's like, I believe in empathy. Like, I think you should care about other people, but you need to have empathy for civilization as a whole and not commit to a civilizational suicide.
Also, don't let someone use your empathy against you so they can completely control your state and then do an insanely bad job of managing it and never get removed.
The fundamental weakness of Western civilization is empathy. The empathy exploit. They're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which is the empathy response. So, and I think empathy is good, but you need to think it through and not just be programmed like a robot.
Right. Understand when empathy has been actually used as a tool.
Yes, it's weaponized empathy is the issue.
Yeah.
So weaponized empathy.
What the fuck was that? Text. That exchange happened after Elon Musk had basically just sold Joe Rogan on great replacement theory without using the phrase great replacement theory.
Right.
And we're going to get to that after this segment. So put a pin in that. But that was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen anyone say.
There is a level of competitive stupidity to it. Empathy is not a bug in whatever you want to call Western civilization. Empathy is a trait found in animals.
Yeah. That's the part of the phrase that really angered me, because he said they're exploiting a bug in Western civilization, which implies that it's a flaw.
Right.
Like an unintentional flaw, in a design flaw. And it displays such a profound level of both arrogance and ignorance about science that galaxy brain science man Elon Musk really should know better.
Right.
And we've talked before on the Fapcast about the sin of empathy concept, so I don't want to retread that here.
Right.
But that was why I had the thought that he was angering God and evolution, because what he just said runs counter to a lot of the central philosophies of Western civilization, however you want to define that, which would include Christianity, but not exclusively that, and also runs counter to everything we know about evolution.
Right. Empathy is not a emotion that exists solely in humans, nor does it exist solely in hominids, nor does it exist solely in great apes.
Yeah.
It exists in mammals, it exists in birds, it exists in some reptiles even. Possibly fish and amphibians. We see life tends to take care of life. Now, girls got to eat. And so, like, you might, it's not 100%, but, like, in general, especially in mammals, we are social animals. Birds fly in flocks.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that works, why animals do that, why we feel empathy as a part of our survival. Because we can't do it alone. We can't do much alone.
Exactly. If you read, this is one of the things I went to school for, by the way. I've had 2 aborted college educations in my life. The first was for religious studies. The second was for geology and paleobiology and evolutionary biology. Basically, I was going for a paleontology degree, and that requires you to focus either from the biological side or the geological side. So I took a lot of both. But understanding how evolutionary theory works is obviously kind of central to
a little bit.
That project. And if you read Darwin's book on human evolution,
yep.
And Darwin is not the only authority, obviously, but he began the conversation.
Right.
After The Origin of Species, he wrote a book called The Descent of Man. And I think its subtitle was "And the Selection on the Basis of Sex," I think, something like that. And this caused quite a stir with the Victorians for two reasons. Number one, his thesis was not just that humans were also evolved organisms like all the other animals we see, but also that our evolution was driven by empathy. He called it sympathy because the meaning of words changes over time. But if you look at what he meant by using the word sympathy, it's what we now call empathy, which is feeling with someone, feeling someone else's pain as your own pain. So his understanding of human evolution could be described as survival of the kindest rather than survival of the fittest, which is splitting hairs because being kind would make you the fittest organism.
Right. Now, like the social Darwinian survival of the fittest thing is not this like dog eat dog capitalist thing. That's not Darwinian.
Right.
That is something made up in the late 19th century, early 20th century to justify capitalism. So,
yeah, it was made up by a thing named Spencer. And I don't know if he did it specifically to justify capitalism, but it's very convenient that it does justify capitalism.
It certainly does.
But what we think of as social Darwinism should not really be called social
or Darwin.
It should not be called Darwinism at all because it doesn't because social Darwinism doesn't understand evolution.
Right.
Period.
Nope.
The idea that survival of the fittest means that the strongest, most ruthless organism is the one who survives misunderstands everything fundamental about evolution.
Right. Evolution is kind of about the power of large numbers. Evolution doesn't happen on a personal level. It happens
evolution
on a species level, on a time scale that we as humans are not fundamentally equipped to understand.
Mm-hmm. Well, it happens at the level of population and the level of genetics, neither of which are individuals.
Right.
But the other thing that this book did to piss off the Victorians, which is not germane to our conversation, but is still worth mentioning, is that Darwin demonstrated that human evolution is driven by female choosiness in mates.
And they really don't like that.
And not just in humans, but in animals generally. But which is why male animals of many species have like very colorful displays and so forth, because it is the female of the species that is driving natural selection. And the Victorians were not happy with that idea, but that's another conversation for another day.
Right.
Now, Darwin's thesis was confirmed by the discovery of what we call mirror neurons. And I don't want to go too technical here, but basically mirror neurons are things that are neurons that exist in the brains of animals where we see other animals experiencing something and we literally experience it as if it is happening to us. It is the neurological basis of empathy.
Right.
Like they've done tests on like brain scans on animals where, and these are very cruel experiments, but they'll torture one animal and the other animals who are hooked up to EKGs and stuff will have the same neurological response to the other animal's pain as the animal has to its own pain. And they isolated the neurons in the brain where that's happening and called them mirror neurons.
Right.
And we have discovered mirror neurons in both birds and in other mammals.
Right.
Which would mean that the existence of mirror neurons would be what in evolution we call homologous between those two groups, meaning that both of those groups, birds and mammals, inherited the trait from a previous common ancestor. And the last common ancestor of birds and mammals was like 300 million years ago, before dinosaurs were around.
Right, where we are talking about a time before dinosaurs that these neurons would have come into being in animals.
Right. So this means that empathy is not a bug of any particular civilization. It is a feature of natural selection. It is a trait that is conserved across evolutionary time by natural selection because it is useful in propagating the species. And it is the most, I don't want to say it's the most human thing we do because it's not unique to humans, but it is a fundamental feature of being at least a land animal on Earth.
And even aquatic mammals, right? How many aquatic mammals swim in pods? or in family units.
Yeah. Well, mammals are. I include them in. I should have been more specific. I'm not teaching evolutionary biology class.
Sorry.
Sea mammals are what we call tetrapods, which are land animals. They just have returned to the sea, but they have all the morphological characteristics of land animals in terms of their skeletal plan and their body plan and so forth. But
they're just on the journey to become crabs again.
Yes, because we all evolve into crabs eventually.
Because it was just Ash Wednesday. From crabs you descend, into crabs you will return.
It was Crab Wednesday is what it was. So this is why Elon Musk is just an idiot. And it's also why after this comment went viral, my Blue Sky feed was full of both theologians and evolutionary biologists and anthropologists calling Elon stupid.
Right.
And explaining from their particular fields of expertise how and why. So we had like Christian and Jewish scholars explaining the long tradition of empathy in their theological traditions, and we had scientists saying, "No, you dumbass! Empathy is fundamental to evolution and natural selection. It is the thing that keeps us all alive."
Right.
And yeah, because
it turns out, like, evolutionarily, you right there listening to us right now, hi, nice talking to you. Evolutionarily, you are not different than a guy in Sumer making beer 6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
There is not biologically, evolutionarily, anything much different between you and them.
Even farther back, anatomically modern humans have existed for around 150,000 years. And what we think of as civilization has only been around for 4,000?
Say again?
10 at the most?
Yeah, say about 10,000.
Depending on how you define it. But
right.
And that brings up another point I wanted to say about the anthropologist Margaret Mead.
Ooh.
Was asked by a student what was the first evidence of human civilization in the fossil record and the archaeological record. And she said, healed broken femurs.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Because if you look at most other animal species who are not, even ones who are social animals, a broken leg is a death sentence.
Yeah.
Because
they can't treat it.
They can't treat it. And so you'll find a lot of animal fossils with broken femurs, because it basically is what led to their death, either through starvation or more likely being preyed upon by scavengers and predators. And the fact that we find human remains from 150,000 years ago of people who had broken legs that healed means they were being taken care of by other members of their tribe or band or whatever level of social organization they had.
Yeah.
And it was treated. They found that humans were motivated to find a way to treat the broken legs of other people, which is empathy.
Right.
And it's both sympathy and empathy, but
inventiveness.
Yeah. Inventiveness towards the furtherance of empathy and motivated by empathy.
Yeah. That is exactly it. And that is civilization in a nutshell, right? Because everything we do builds off of what others have done before us.
Yeah. So empathy is not a bug in Western civilization. It is a feature of human civilization and of animal life generally.
I would go as far to say as that this fear of empathy is a bug in Western civilization.
Yep.
Because you are looking to not propagate the human species and preserve human civilization, but you are looking to remove that which is uncomfortable to you, and your empathy stands in the way of that. Your empathy is a reminder that you biologically don't want to do this.
Yeah. And in the environment of evolutionary adaptation, the EEA, which is the Stone Age, a person with the philosophy of Elon Musk would be eliminated from the gene pool through natural selection.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to help other people.
Nope.
Or be helped by other people. He probably wants to be helped by other people.
He wants to be helped, but he does not want to help.
But a society that built itself around his idea
would perish.
That empathy is a flaw would be removed from the gene pool. And
Yeah.
people like with that philosophy are only able to flourish because of the power structures we have invented since then.
Right.
That are designed to make them flourish.